He said one day you'll leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember. My father told me when I was just a child, these are the nights that never die. My father told me.
Welcome to the Functional Code, your go-to source for decoding optimal health. Join Dr. Addy and Dr. Jace as they break down the science behind pain, performance, longevity, and more, making complex concepts easy for you to understand and apply in your life. Your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the Functional Code.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Functional Code. We are excited to bring to you guys today a new episode. We are going to be talking about Parker Seminars 2025. Myself, Dr. Jace, and Corey were able to attend over the weekend, and it really was an impressive lineup of speakers. These individuals I know you've all heard from, anyone from Jay Shetty to Dr. Andrew Huberman, Gary Vaynerchuk, and more. So we're going to get to all of those speakers, what they've spoke about, and some of the things that we took away. But yes, I just want to introduce again our special guest, Corey Brown. He was on a podcast talking about MMA and how to bulletproof that MMA athlete. So we're excited to have him back on the podcast. Today he does have a special announcement that we're really excited for, and I hope you guys are too. Corey, what are you pumped about coming up here in 2025?
So I have some big news for everybody, for those who have been following my journey and not only my academic career, but who have known me for my whole life, have known that I've been really attached to fitness, nutrition, health, longevity, all that kind of stuff for a long time now. So I'm super happy to announce that this fall, I'm gonna be moving to Texas and attending Parker University to become a chiropractor. So that's it. I appreciate you guys. Honestly, really, if it wasn't for your guys' help, motivation, push, every single day in clinic, outside of here, not only with that side of it, in terms of like personal, being my friend, being there for me when I need somebody, and it just, you guys are always there for me. And you guys always give me that extra motivation, and I'm really pleased to announce that I'm getting into a doctorate program. I thank you guys for all your help and everything you've done for me, so I really appreciate it. And super excited for the future.
I'm excited for you. Parker, we both knew about Parker. I don't think we really knew until we got to Parker Seminars.
A whole nother
Blew
ballgame.
us away.
I would agree, honestly.
Unreal.
Yeah, unreal.
They have done it so well, and I can't wait to go to another one. It was probably one of the best seminars that I've been to, and it just showed where Parker is in accordance to maybe some other places. And had I known that, I maybe would have given Parker a thought from when I was choosing my doctorate. But yeah, Doc, anything with that?
Yeah, same here. I think if I would go back, with what they have in place right now, if I was in Corey's journey, I would be doing the same thing you're doing right now. Yeah. With everyone, the faculty there, the facilities they have, it's incredible. But make no mistake, like, Corey is incredibly smart on so many things that you guys probably get some insight today on that one. Like, he's talking about stuff that I don't even know. Off the top of my head, I'm like, geez, excited for you and your journey. Obviously, we're here for you any way possible. So,
Yes.
But yeah, appreciate
Congrats,
it.
buddy.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So the speaker list, like we said, was packed. Really, these are all the individuals that we were able to see either together or separately, because I think over 100 lectures were given this weekend. And so we couldn't individually be at every single one of them, but we did go to many together, and then some of us did branch off to try to get to the ones that we were interested in. But this is the list that we were able to hit. Jay Shetty, Dr. Cliff Tao, who is a radiology expert, Dr. Andy Gelpin, who's a big name next to Huberman now. He's actually now a faculty member at Parker, so I know, Corey, you're pumped.
I was very interested in going to Parker.
I think he is going to be such a great addition to Parker College. Dr. Angela Duckworth, Thomas DeLauer, Dr. Kelly Starrett, Dr. Greg Rose, Dr. Tammy Fogarty, Gary Vaynerchuk, which we're excited to also talk about later on in the pod. Cody Burkhart, who is an ex-NASA just specialist, diving into a bunch of things. Ben Greenfield, one of my favorites. Shout out to Ben, love you. Dr. Kyle Smith, and then lastly, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who has exploded the last couple of years talking about muscle health, longevity, truly, plus so many more we didn't even get to. I know we would love just to literally speak on all the hundreds of people there, but yeah, it was incredible. Guys, I'm curious from you, let's pick one speaker who we really took something from, and maybe what was that one or two things. So
I got
Doctor,
you.
You want to start with
Ooh,
that?
I got you. I think I learned a few tidbits from every single one of these individuals. I think the bigger one that I absolutely loved was Dr. Angela Duckworth. Her main thing was on a book called Grit. A lot of it comes back to intentional focus and effort and work.
Yep.
I think, and we might get into this later on the pod too, but a lot of it comes down to the 10,000 hour rule of if you complete a task or try to master a skill, you want to spend 10,000 hours. There's some truth to that and there's some nots. Like if you have 10,000 hours but you're not intentional with it, you're going to start peaking out halfway on what your potential could be versus the intentional work of like you're purposely trying to get better on small things, either whether it's 1% better on this topic or you wanted to improve or understand a different topic from a different perspective. Either or, being intentional with that 10,000 hours definitely helps long-term for the growth potential and whatever it is you want to learn from there. So I love that.
I remember her stating that you think doing something for 10,000 hours makes you an expert, but that's just not the truth. You could half-ass that 10,000 hours and still not be where you should have been, which then she said something about doing that for then 30,000 hours.
Yes.
Half-assed versus intentional 10,000, you're going to get there quicker. To think that 30,000 hours and you still haven't got to where you should have been, to do it intentionally for 10,000 and you're much farther ahead, that's scary to think about. We just talked about time management.
Yep.
How much time you can waste when you're not intentional.
So true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So true. Corey, is there something that you like from that one?
Yeah. From
Well, even that one, or just, is there a speaker that you found to be?
Yeah, for sure. One of the speakers who I was very interested in going to see this weekend was Thomas DeLauer. He was one that I scooted away from you guys to go see. Yeah, he, in a way, pushed the boundaries with some of the studies that he was showing on current research combating some of what most of us think in terms of protein consumption, fasting, sauna, even Ozempic, peptides, some of the more controversial topics that we see today in healthcare and even sometimes in our clinic here as well. Yeah, it was very interesting, and we'll probably touch on some of that in a little bit.
What was the protein upper limit thing you were talking about? I think that was
I'm
that was that was a fun one. That was
Yeah, so I actually have a study here that he cited from Cell Reports Medicine. They found that 100 grams of protein in one sitting sustained muscle protein synthesis for 12 plus hours, which is very interesting. They compared that, I believe, to a 25 gram protein group. So I'm sure most of you have heard 25 grams of protein is the most that our body can digest, consume at one time.
that was fact.
That's what seems to be the mainstream thought. This study, though, Cell Reports Medicine, found that, 100 grams in one sitting. So those who fast, those who work all day long and can't get to a meal, you can actually slam protein and actually put it to use.
Not only that, it showed
Go.
really positive benefits of that, right?
Exactly, yeah, more sustained, and right here, increased amino acid flux, so more amino acids were being used rather than oxidized, which I found is very interesting. So this was all compared to the 25 gram protein group, so very interesting.
Allow for protein synthesis to be sustained.
More sustained, yep. And it was actually more gradual. I don't remember the exact numbers on the study, but it said after a short amount of time, 4 hours, it was a 25% difference increase, but then even longer, it was a 40% increase. So it's almost gradual compared to the 25 gram group. Yeah, that's just one of.
And it should with everyone else, because if those of you who struggle eating 6 meals a day when you're trying to bulk or you're trying to, you don't maybe have to do that.
For sure, and I think the big takeaway here was as long as you're meeting your daily protein requirements, then you should be good. You don't have to worry about breaking that up. I can only have 30 grams here or 30 grams here. As long as you're getting a minimum of 30 grams per meal, then you're set. But if you have to fast or work all day, you can slam 100 grams of protein and still get all the benefits. If not more benefits than if you were to just take a smaller portion of protein. Still get all the benefits. If not,
And that's exciting
more benefits than if
for
you
me,
just take a
for me,
smaller
because
portion of
I did think I had to chunk it up, and I hate eating multiple times during the day.
me as well. I
So-
found that very out of the norm of what we typically expect.
And I know Gabrielle Lyon, she had some similar insights on that same side, but I like her intake with muscle growth. I know I definitely want to get into yours here as well too, but it's interesting for her perspective within that protein synthesis and how you have to eat more protein as that focus. But with her also focus of the shift not on obesity but more on muscle growth, which we'll get into here in a sec. That would change my perspective quite a bit on that side.
There was a question when he was doing a Q&A, Thomas DeLauer. There was a lady who asked him about what she should do if she wants to increase her calories, but she doesn't want to gain weight and all this stuff because she has a condition or something. And he said to increase your calories only in protein. So let's say you want an extra 100 calories a day, 1,100 to 1,200. Make that 100 calories just from protein. So eat some beef if you do that, or
similar change in thermal effect.
for sure.
That helps a little bit.
Which, kind of comparing it to Gabby Lyon, we should focus on the protein more and less about the fat and all that stuff. So don't worry about the calories, worry about your protein and trying to get as much protein as you can for those benefits.
She even said protein is essential. I like that she used that word. It's the only essential macro, which did change my perspective on just the importance of protein.
It's incredible. And even when she had a study, and I think I have a picture I'll put up, I might have to edit it because it's poor quality, either or. It showed that like the carbs that we consume were way over the main dietary consumption versus protein where it was the complete opposite. So that goes back to staying that
on average, I think
focus on protein.
Americans eat 300 grams of carbs a day.
Yeah, I have that right here. 50% of total calorie intake.
That's just and it's sad too because she did talk a lot about how if you look at the food pyramid, you're actually on point. That's what they want you to be eating. And she's saying we have got that wrong by a mile. And the carbohydrate intake at 45 to 55% of our total daily calorie intake needs to be swapped so much, and we need to start looking more at protein being that 40, maybe 50%, and then choosing carbs wisely, not having it to be ultra processed, obviously, and then adding fats in as well, important fats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stated.
Super awesome. She was one that I was going to talk on, but there was one in here, Dr. Kyle Smith, who I found to be definitely the most, how would you say, I learned something that I never actually heard before from him. And so Dr. Kyle Smith, I think he's got a few things in his background, but he is a chiropractor, but he is a master formulator of supplements, and he has maybe some biotech pharmacy background too. But he created the world's most popular brain supplement by volume. Now, it was used in all these formulas, but he created that. And he was actually one of the only people who helped the push for the FDA to approve a supplement for use in humans, and it was phosphatidylserine.
Oh, sure. Okay.
He was one of the ones that pushed so hard because he knew it was essential for elderly people to take it. Wow. Yeah. So very cool background that way. But what he spoke on was the tie between hyperinsulinemia or high insulin levels and direct ties to poor sleep quality. And what he found was when you have high insulin in your body, it is studied and directly correlated to how poorly you sleep and how that affects your health long term. And he showed study after study of hyperinsulinemia causing more pain in individuals. So it lowers our pain threshold, which directly affects sleep. When we have more pain, we don't sleep. He said that it can cause obesity, obviously.
Which makes sense.
But it can also change the way we have a sleep-wake cycle and the way that we have deep sleep and REM sleep when we have hyperinsulinemia.
Like less time in the deep REM?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Whether that's poor sleep, whether that's breathing mechanics through obesity, it's tough to, yes, it's directly correlated, but there probably still is a lot of other variables that are involved in all of it.
Brain health and pituitary.
Yeah. So then at the end, he was mentioning how all of these patients that come to him who have all of these issues with pain, the first thing that he does, he looks at insulin. He looks at insulin right away. He had this gentleman, one of his cases he liked to share. He had a patient who was severely obese, in so much pain, could not figure out his sleep, and he was miserable. And his blood levels, he was looking through, and they weren't as bad as you'd expected. He did an insulin level. Insulin serum level should be around, I believe it's 5 to 8 universal micromilliliters per, I think it's deciliter or something like that. 5 to 8. This gentleman's was 41. It was incredibly high. Now, he started to hack this gentleman's insulin. They started to do a bunch of different things. And when he dropped 60 pounds and his insulin started getting back down into regular range, he noticed that his pain was gone. By the way, he didn't treat him with anything else.
Wow.
Just diet and supplements. His pain was gone, and he found that his REM sleep increased by 75% in 60 days.
75%.
And he didn't have him do like a cold bed, like he didn't have him do breathing, it was just diet and exercise and supplements.
Shoot.
Wow, yeah.
So what are like key takeaways from that you would want to introduce to your patients? I know you said prior to you already started looking at less before bed or
I would say
strategies.
Sleep tracker is going to be super helpful to make sure you are sleeping. And he called it was bidirectional. So poor sleep, high insulin, you're going to have poor sleep. They'll always affect each other. So when you start sleeping better, not even changing diet, exercise, and supplements, that will drop your insulin.
Wow.
Let alone when you start working diet, exercise, supplements, drops your insulin, sleep will improve.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Work on both at the same time, you're going to advance. Wow. So I would say sleep tracker to make sure you are boosting your sleep so you can see what you need to do. He talked about some supplements that does help with insulin regulation.
Sure.
But I think the big 5 or 4 that he said was number 1, sleep tracking. Number 2, high intensity exercise 6 times a week. That is going to improve insulin receptors. Diet, he liked a paleo diet. He said that it was simple for most. It wasn't hard. You can stick to it. Supplements, I think he had 5 or 10 he listed. Curcumin was on there, berberine. There was some few others, but there was simplicity to it, and it was information that I think if anyone were to try to listen to, it wouldn't overwhelm them, and they'd say, wow, I can do this. I feel like I can do this. So totally one of the better lectures I've ever heard, and it already changes how I'm going to treat my patients.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I never even thought about insulin and sleep and any correlation there.
Yeah,
Like,
very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Let's break down some of the bigger names that we got to see this and hear this weekend.
Yeah.
The first was Jay Shetty. Jay used to be a monk,
yes.
and he was, I would say he's got one of the more famous podcasts in the world on brain health and communication and just being enlightened, I think is maybe the best way to put it. And so I'm sure a lot of you have heard about him. Some of the quotes in his speech, I'm just going to bring up, and then we'll jump into the first talking point. But the number 1 skill that leaders should have was called associating, spotting connections where others see anomalies. And we'll talk about what that means here in a little bit. If you don't learn to communicate in their language, your idea won't land, meaning when you're communicating with a staff member or another family member, friend, a spouse, if you don't communicate in their language, your idea won't land. As a leader, we must remind people of their inherent power. Question was, when was the last time you saw the world through a child's eyes? That was a pretty interesting part of it.
I like that part.
And lastly, what do you feel you belong to? What is your reason for being? And I think that's probably ties to what is your why, purpose. He talked a lot about that. The first thing which tied to what we do, obviously, he talked about removing barriers to health. And he explained that the foundation should be to remove the barriers to good health so the body can heal itself. And so I think really what I took away from that was there's a lot more to health than what we always envision it to be. And it can become a lot more from stress, not communicating well, a toxic environment, things that you don't maybe put on the priority because you feel it's easier to just buy that supplement, to just hit that treadmill, and to not actually do the hard things, which is communicating with people you don't like. That's tough to do. Crucial conversations. Removing yourself from a toxic environment or a work environment you've been in for years and you can't get out of it. That is hard.
Very hard.
And lastly, removing stress that you've maybe had for years. These things are going to be the tougher things to do, but those are what he really focused on, making sure that you should be prioritizing among the other things. But doing that will allow us to heal and to truly thrive.
I like that part with him. I also like when he broke apart different communication groups.
Yes.
Could you imagine? I think in the room there was. Do you guys know how many?
7,000, 8,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That many. So could you imagine 8,000 people, let's say, in a huge room, and he's having people try to move off to the front left side, front right side of the whole room, back left. And then he broke apart each communication styles.
I remember it was introvert, extrovert, and then people and task. And so he always said that, okay, you got the extroverts who are people. So 100%, 100%, the most extroverted you can find. And then you got the introvert task people who never want to see daylight. And they're just like, he goes, those people don't like each other. But imagine working together and having to communicate. And he goes, it's different. So back to the one quote, which was, if you don't learn to communicate in your language, your idea won't land.
Yes.
And it's so true. Imagine trying to bring a introverted, task-oriented person into a brainstorming, extroverted, we'll call it session.
Yes.
Good luck. And even if you're trying to will it, even if you do get them in that room, they're probably uncomfortable and they probably aren't going to want to say much. And these are just things that you'll have to deal with day to day.
So you can see that point of view. When you're communicating with someone, you have to communicate at their level just so they're able to upload it and understand what we're asking or what is being said at that time too. So I thought that was incredible, but just to see it from a large scope perspective on how everyone's moving, it's a different perspective of things.
It broke apart the groups. It was interesting to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually like this point, skipping ahead here, but in terms of childlike creativity, in terms of asking some of the top CEOs of how they're able to be creative with their products. I think what they asked, it was Steve Jobs said that if you want to find purpose or find a creative outlet, go off, get away from work and just get out into either nature or just spend some time alone and start pondering things. And they relayed that message back to when you, and the quote was, when was the last time you saw something through the eyes of a child? I think that is so true. I can remember back when I was younger and playing the sandbox, and as a kid, obviously there's no worries. There is just different perspective of things in terms of how you look at situations, how you look at the world.
Yeah, honestly, I think kids sometimes can be the most honest and the most real with us sometimes. We even see it in here with our younger patients, right? Removing yourself from that work overload environment, just getting out, don't even worry about that. Find something else to fill your mind. As we get older, everything starts to be more logical. Start marking your calendar and making to-do lists. Everything has to be in this order, where a child is just free and honest.
That's beautiful chaos.
Beautiful chaos.
Beautiful chaos.
I saw this video yesterday about when we get older, we oftentimes wish we were younger. When we're younger, oftentimes we wish we were older. So there's a lot of analogies like that we could make all throughout life, but I really like that talking point. And then even going back to what Dr. Adi, you were saying, trying to communicate in their language. I'm young, dude. I'm learning about that in relationships, even family. But a big one here is in this clinic. These people are often a little timid. They don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of people here. Who are these people? Are they going to be able to help me? So to be able to not come at them with all this science knowledge and crazy terms, we have to sometimes be their friend and just act like we're just there to we really do. And that's why I really want to pursue this. And I don't know. That's why I'm so passionate about what we do and why I'm so excited to go to Parker.
You just said the word care, which I love the quote. They don't care about how much you know until they know that you care.
Yes.
When this is in business, this is in sales, this is in any real occupation. The second someone gets in front of you and you're trying to help them, whether it's sell them something, whether it's to help them with a service, something, if you just start spouting everything you can think about regarding your service, regarding why it's better, and just come at them, they are going to glaze over you. Yeah. But if you say and try to get on asking questions about them, trying to figure out why they would want that, truly care about why they're in front of you. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you know. Yeah. They just want to know that you're there to help them and care about them. Yeah. That is 99.9% of it. Yeah. The rest is just telling them what you do, how you know what you know, and sometimes they don't even really care. Yep. They don't really care.
They want results.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that comes back to both of you. You guys are both highly emotionally intelligent individuals. You guys read the situation quite well. If a person looks like they're intimidated, if they look like it's overwhelming, I see both of you guys with how you go about talking to one another or that patient. Like for you, you make jokes, you enjoy the company, and I know, Corey, you relate to that individual more on a personal level and then build up from there in small chunks. And so it's cool to see from, I guess, my perspective on how each person can take a situation and read a person and then make them feel comfortable in a setting. I think our whole staff, honestly, does a really good job.
Agreed. Seriously.
You guys especially, so it's cool to see
appreciate that.
application.
Just to touch on that real quick, I think you just find one thing that you have in common with somebody, and you can make a connection, you know? 100%. So, not saying it relationship, it has to go somewhere as a patient or even somebody at the store or something. Just find something in common, and that's how you spark a connection, regardless of if it's friendship, relationship.
And it's getting harder for the younger population, unfortunately. I think they're used to that spark coming from a message on their phone to another person. They're used to, some of the people's best friends now are who they played video games with online. They never met these people. So that's what their spark came from. Not to say that you can't go out and do that still, but it is harder for people. For sure.
Very well
so
stated.
I think practice makes perfect. Associating is the number one leadership skill. I won't touch too much on that. He basically said that power is in the opposites. And the best leaders are the ones that can spot connections where others see anomalies. And so a lot of the times, he talked about the polarization of the world right now and how it's easy for us to block that maybe opposite out. We don't want to assimilate ourselves with the opposite. We just want to believe what we believe. And we only want to surround ourselves with people who agree with us and believe us. And he said that the best leaders in the room aren't the ones that they're the smartest. They're the ones who can connect with anyone.
Connect the dots.
Random people. He goes, and you're going to want to make sure that you have random people in your network. Because when you have questions on let's say a subject, topic, project, he goes, the 5 people you know are going to tell you what you already probably think. The one person you don't know, they're going to tell you something that you probably aren't going to hear from those 5. And that's where power comes from. And so I really liked, that was probably my favorite part of the speech.
And I think that can come back down to not only for in person, in like people you work with, but also like our network of providers. Because when you look at a condition of any time someone comes into, let's say, our clinic, if we only look at through only our lens of chiropractic or physical therapy,
Right.
there's also a psychological component. There's also other aspects
Nutrition,
of like
diet, all that.
perfect.
Yep.
And then family as well can be coming up from the bottom, which also affects this individual. So
Yes.
taking different perspectives at whatever that they have got going on will only help better that person. So it opens up. Do you know other practitioners? Do you have other connections to maybe ask questions for that individual? So it goes above and beyond just the workplace. But yeah, no, it's opening up and connecting those dots.
Yes.
Like how Jace said that. And
100%.
yeah, that was good.
Awesome speech. Next, we have Dr. Andy Galpin.
Let's go.
Dr. Galpin, the Galps, man. Dr. Galpin. Now, I believe, is it bioenergetics he has his PhD in? I think it's
that sounds very
bioenergetics. He's
right.
like he's like very rare. There's not many people who have
He's got
a
a
PhD.
variety.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if he even has multiple, but what a force right now in performance medicine, precision medicine, just trying to really call out the bullshit, driven to make sure that what people are putting in their lives are actually make an account for it. You're not spending your money on crap that doesn't help you. He's always vetting. I'm listening to a podcast of his right now, and he is funny because he brings up a supplement to talk about, and then he reminds himself, he's like, by the way, I freaking hate supplements. He's like, 90% of them are garbage out there. He's like, the only reason I'm talking about this one is because I have talked for 3 months to this like lead scientist of this supplement. I really want to make sure that it's good. So I trust his insight. He's got an incredible mind, and it's fun to listen to him talk. Some of the things, there's a lot on here that he had said. Do you want to talk on them? Yeah, please. Thank you for that.
He said, prove it on them. Objectively show me I did this thing. I paid this money and now I got better. So I think just even to that point, a lot of people will say you'll get this result or you'll say you get this, especially in a service standpoint.
Right.
But until they actually, you see the results, you see the testimonies, you can walk them through what the next steps are, and then having look back on either pre-post, do they have better range of motion? Do they have less pain? Not only just chiropractic or service care, but also supplements as well. So I like that, going straight to the point, cutting out the BS, and if you're going to say something, go through with it and make sure it happens.
You back up your claims, right?
Yes.
100%.
Tell me you're gonna help me. Don't tell me you're gonna help me. I want you to help me. Show me you're gonna help me. I'm paying all this money. Exactly.
Next one was, you want to be grading your clients against your peers, not against the room full of synthetic data.
Ooh, that was
now, synthetic data, Doc, you might have a better perspective on this. You could probably say that better than I can, but it's interesting with AI coming down the road on some of the stuff that is coming out of the GPTs, the agents there. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, so the way he explained it was synthetic data in certain industries is very helpful. But when it comes to synthetic data coming from humans, there is so much, we'll call it misinformation that's built in that synthetic data. Because the data itself, there are some research papers out there that are fake. And so if it takes that, replicates it, you're starting to build now data off of data that already was fake, okay? So there's that point of it. And then he said there are GPTs out there that are creating other GPTs, which then create other GPTs that they're trying to, we'll call it, fast forward building these AI softwares and agents. But to do that, they're cutting corners. And it's just rebuilding and duplicating crap data that's it's not really real and it's not helpful. And as we get to this point, there's going to be, and there already is, like I think at one point in some industries, there's 70% of the data they have on the industry is now fake, is now synthetic, which
It's incredible.
like he said, in some industries it's okay, but when it comes to humans, it's not okay. We need real data and we need it all the time. And so he likes this feeling of, so when you grade your clients against your peers, it's more of, and not only your peers, but yourself. He loves the N of one. He loves the data of you versus now versus 6 months from now. And that's always going to be the most relevant to you. So I love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah, and there's one more, because I think this can blend in a little bit with that last one, but we can have these things, no more hiding behind claims. Let experts be the experts and hit the easy button as much as you possibly can. Yeah. I think that, again, goes back speaking to, you have to listen to the experts, doctors in the field. You can obviously get second opinions, third opinions, but if you have to rely on AI for specific conditions that you may have, even though it's somewhat decent, it's certain times for certain people, for certain conditions, I think there's some variability to that.
Yeah.
But even going back to that last point too, I know when we were put together certain podcasts, we asked that bring up certain studies, and we click on the study and it's a fake. It's nothing. It's a study not even related to what we're talking about.
And these GPTs will make it out of thin air without you even asking them to, because they're just it's feeling like it's helping you by giving you what you asked for. But it's very difficult sometimes to prompt a GPT to give you what you want.
So true.
And so when it says, find me research on said XYZ, it maybe heard that and said, just make up and give me research on XYZ. Not look through PubMed, a high quality website for fun. It's and then next thing you know, you took that data and then now it remembers only what you gave it, and now you're just funneling it off that. So it's very difficult. But
Interesting.
So yeah, Corey, was there anything that you liked as far as those quotes?
Oh yeah, I honestly wasn't even really familiar with any of that stuff. I didn't really know how bad it was until he started talking about it. How they build data off of data that's not even real. How they just input hypothetical data into the computer and then they just get answers out of that based on what the computer or the AI thinks it's going to do, which is kind of scary if you're testing a product or you're testing something that could potentially hurt or benefit humans. We don't want fake research. We don't want fake answers. Again, is this going to help me or not? Like, we want real data, and human trials are always going to be the best trials.
100%. And I know there was a bunch of, like, when Andy Gelbin, he brought up in his speech a bunch of different technologies that can help AI partially. I don't know, did you take a list of any of those?
I do have, let me see here. Yeah, the Vitality Blueprint, that was super interesting. Dan Garner and Andy Galpin, they were talking about how you can fill in the gaps based on your own data. So instead of relying on this AI data to say what is expected of you, you can actually see your data, where you're at on all aspects of your health and fitness, and then you can plug it into this software program that they've developed, and then you get real-time help on your specific, I don't want to say condition, but based on what you have going on, there's a program, a plan for you specifically, not the next guy in line. It's built directly for what's going on with you. I thought that was super interesting. And talking to Dan about that at the Parker seminar, and he's such a cool dude, and I'm glad we got to have that little conversation with him. But yeah, definitely learned a lot, just that little chat with him and about the company and what they're doing in terms of trying to help people with their health, fitness, and all the stuff that everybody wants to optimize. So
That brings us to the first point, which is we're at the spot now of me versus me.
Yes.
Just like you said, we have these now models that we can measure ourselves with, whether it's, Dr. Galpin called it human sensor models. So AI that helps track your sleep, AI that tracks your diet, AI that tracks blood work. And then it gives you all of this just incredible information for yourself. What does that look like now? What can it look like in this amount of time? And then when you get there, how much have you improved and what does that look like? That, by and large, he is arguing, is the best way to get results for yourself than to put yourself in comparison to the average data that they have out there in regards to wearables, in regards to services, treatments, what have you.
100%. Yeah.
50% of the people in the room had health trackers, by the way.
It seemed way more than
It
that.
probably was,
At our
but that's
conference,
incredible.
yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a lot.
like, yeah, I think it, honestly, my personal opinion, I think it's good. I think we can see our data physically. It may not be 100% accurate depending on the device, but as long as we get a decent gauge for most people, ideally get your blood work and all that stuff through real data. Start collecting your own metrics so that you can build on that and optimize your own health. So I think checking your oxygen, blood pressure, heart rate, all that stuff on your watch device, your sleep, VO2 max, I even saw they have one. I don't know how accurate that is, but they have a watch that'll test that on your runs and stuff, yeah. So test your own metrics, get your own baseline levels, build off of that through trackers, whether it's a watch or a ring or whatever it may be. So that's, I don't know. What do you guys think about devices?
I'm looking into that Aura ring. I really am. I've looked at it for now. I think I felt I could manage what I'm doing health-wise without wearables. But what I found was, after hearing what Galpin said about truly knowing yourself and of one, me versus me, what that can do for you in the future, having that data itself, that's what's powerful. Because we're going to talk about now the digital twin, digital twinning part of it. That's what I didn't have. Now I have that understanding, and now I know why that data is important.
It changes everything.
A digital twin is basically a simulated version of yourself on, we'll call it the internet, maybe.
Or the collected data from your wearables
Yep.
to make this digital twin up.
So it's a digital version of whatever data you've been giving it for an amount of time. And that data now can be simulated against treatments and services and supplements and what have you. And then algorithmically, it can give you what supplements should you be taking through the data that they have. What diet should you be doing? How should you be fasting? Should you not be fasting?
Yeah.
And we've been talking to, other than just Dr. Galpin, we've been talking to some other individuals who've been doing twinning.
Yes.
Some of them are like, how well will you do doing chemo? And is hyperbaric oxygen chamber something you should be doing?
Different modalities.
All these things.
Yeah.
Now that is efficient. It's going to save me time. And that's where I'm like, okay, I got to get a wearable. Yeah.
This is what you should do. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think some of this stuff it's available, but it's improving on, especially you add AI onto this, give it 5 years, we're going to be in a whole nother world.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Love that.
We talked about synthetic data. Did have a tidbit about improving sleep, which I thought was
yes.
interesting. He mentioned how in a closed room setting, you think about it, your windows are shut, your doors are closed. As you and maybe another individual or maybe some other family members, if you're in a bigger room sleeping together, you're all breathing out CO2. And what some people don't realize is if there is no good airflow through that area, that will raise by mid-sleep, towards the end of sleep. And if it gets over 900 parts per million, which is in the research kind of a level you want to make sure you're not over, sleep goes down. It degrades your sleep quality. And he says it's more common than you think. And I didn't even think about that. And so he talked about a company that he works with called Absolute Rest, which I believe is an AI tracking environmental wearable, and it can pick up that. And if you notice that it is higher, the CO2, then you need to figure out a way to, I can't remember how he said it. Was it just to improve air quality?
Improve functional sleep in itself, but there's a bunch of different things that you can
Try to get
Better airflow, crack a
Yeah.
window, or
Yep.
try to get a fresh supply of oxygen.
That's first time I heard that.
Yeah, to make this
interesting.
land, try to take, and he did this example with the whole crowd. Take a breath in, hold that there as long as you possibly can. You'll start noticing people, it's harder for them to hold their breath. Imagine that in a room setting when waking up or not waking up and your poor quality sleep. It just, those small things definitely matter. That gave me a different perspective on closed room, not windows open, airflow, all that. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually always sleep with my window cracked, at least. Yeah, usually that crack gets a little smaller towards the summer because it's freaking hot outside. But to that point, I didn't know that, but I just always have cracked my window. But that's super interesting stuff, something that most people don't think about. Yeah, we're breathing out CO2, but to how much? Am I really going to struggle breathing or have it affect my sleep? Just, yeah, okay. And then you see the research, and then it's actually really common, and it can really affect your sleep.
And then lastly, I'll just throw out a few things that he uses now objectively for continuing to track N of 1, me versus me. The wearables, he threw out Whoop, threw out Aura. I believe he also mentioned...
It was an app that you can scan the food and it uploads all the metrics.
So that one was
you just take a
very
picture.
easy. You take a picture of the food and it can just
Yes.
show you your macros given the size of the food, and I'm sure it just through AI, which I
So
know
helpful.
if you have used fitness apps before, going in, clicking every little thing to make sure, it can stop you from wanting to track your macros.
Honestly, it stopped me before.
Yes.
And as much as I want to start tracking, I would rather go to an app like that where I can just snap a picture, boop, and it knows exactly my portion size. It knows exactly my macros down to the micros. So that's.
And he even said, look, even if
Yes.
it's only 90% accurate, it's you versus you.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be accurate for anybody else. This is just for you. And that's where you're going to win. Because you don't have to be 100% now. Because it's just you versus you. And so he goes, even at 90%, and he talked about how the studies of people tracking, or people thinking that they're tracking calories appropriately, and how he said like over 80% of them miss their mark when they don't know how to track. They don't know how to guess what calories are in what. And he goes, trust me, even that picture at 90% efficiency, way better than you just thinking about it on your own.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Super cool.
lastly, there's now a new 3D body scanner called Springbok, where we can get a 3D view of not only, like we used to have CT scans for 3D bone, but now we get it fully of tissue and muscle.
That's cool.
And he can see now, okay, you just got done, let's say post-op, you had some atrophy in the knee, around the knee. Your PT goes, yeah, looks like that knee is 100%. The muscle's back, it looks good. And he goes, show me. Is it big? Is it big enough? Is it the same size as the other leg now? You just telling me that, what is that? So he goes, now I can visualize it. And I take a picture of it. And guess what? We know that the vastus lateralis is now fully grown to where it was 50% before that. And he goes, I can show you that now. And guess what? Your outcomes are only going to get better because you're not lying and you're not guessing.
Yeah.
Yes. Things like this.
I love that.
Healthcare it's flying right now, and to stay on top of it is difficult. There's going to be some crazy changes in the next 5 years.
I think that's where Parker kind of is stepping in. They're implementing so many new technologies and strategies, and people from all domains, not just chiropractic. So they're getting a broad scope of healthcare, and it's super cool to see. And that's the reason I want to go there, because they have so many kind of people there.
Yes.
Do you want to speak on what they're bringing in terms of like performance lab or any specifics? that they
Yeah, over the weekend they talked about the new Parker Human Performance Center, which is being built and ran by Dr. Andy Galpin, who we're talking about right now. Super cool. Supposedly this facility is going to be 65,000 square feet.
And to put that into perspective, that's half a Costco.
Yeah.
Costco is about 120,000. So think of how ginormous Costco is and just cut it in half. That's one performance center. Yeah.
In the Performance Center. The Human Performance Institute is going to include a lot of high-tech, state-of-the-art technology that you really can't find anywhere else in the world. That's how they put it. So really new.
Some of it is like hasn't even been brought into humans yet.
Yeah, some of it, is going to be brand new. They teased it over the weekend, but I'm super excited to see. I don't know if they've started building it yet. I know it takes time and a lot of money. Super excited regardless, and I really can't wait to see.
I can't
So
wait to come visit
jealous
it
of
once
you.
it's built.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Weekend trip, we're
Yeah,
coming.
baby. Yeah, baby. Alrighty. So next, I don't think this gentleman needs any introduction. I think most people understand. His lectures have been broadcasted everywhere over YouTube and you name it, any podcasts. We think about probably, he's one of the first that come to mind now, along with Joe Rogan, I'd say.
Oh, yes.
So Dr. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist, and he really gained his following around the time of COVID is when he started putting up videos. He really was taken aback by the amount of misinformation that was being just spread at that time. And he really just wanted to start letting people understand that you can still use anecdotal and also empirical evidence to do good things for your health. And you don't always have to go down this route of what modern medicine is telling you. There are other great things performance-wise that you can do that maybe don't have a lot of research, but taking anything you can empirical, squeezing what you can out of it, but then trying it on yourself is still something you can do and get outcomes with. And now, fast forward 5 years, he's probably still one of the #1 podcasts in the world. So
Especially health space.
yes,
Yeah.
and what a wealth of knowledge. If you haven't listened to a Huberman podcast yet, strap in. They're a good 2 to 3 hours each, but it goes by quick because that guy vomits excellence. It comes at you quick.
You could tell.
I think we had him for about an hour, and that was about 2 hours too short. He still was just vibing at the end. He couldn't get it all out.
Cut him off.
Yeah. But it was fun. It was fun to listen to. A few things that he mentioned. One for me was movement gives you more energy. And what he meant by that was we always think that we need to motivate ourselves to do things, to move, to get to where we want to do it. And he thinks, we always think that's supposed to just be in us. But he says it's the exact opposite. He goes, when we work out, when we exercise, that upregulates neurotransmitters and processes in our body to create alertness, to create focus, to create ATP drive and blood flow. Then you get that energy.
Yes.
And I think most people think they're just waiting and resting to get that energy so that they can work out. You're not going to get there. You're not going to get there. And that, for me, when he mentioned it, helped me. Now I'm going to break that down for patients. It helped me break that down because now that makes more sense to me.
I absolutely love that. And it speaks to a lot of stuff we've touched on in the past. I like the quote that he said, if your days can start now with immense pressure and end with immense peace, you're going to win.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Doc, you want to talk a little
that.
bit about what he means by that, like with the cold plunge, like all that stuff?
yeah, it's like you almost have to build up your stress tolerance. And I think over time, when you get used to the pressure, when you get used to a lot of tasks, a lot of responsibilities, you're able to handle that much easier. It's
Yes.
much the same with going to the cold plunge, cold exposure. You're able to handle more stress throughout the day, whether it's cold or not. It just builds up your tolerance. Like early in my career, if I knew or would look at myself today, I would be like, oh my God, I don't know if I would ever want that with all these responsibilities, with all these things going on. But now when you get into it, you understand that, okay, you just handle one day at a time, one task at a time. And yes, there's going to be certain things, certain balls when you're juggling all these tasks that might drop. But at the end, if you give your fullest every single day with every single interaction, at the end of the day, if you are able to sleep, you're going to leave the world better than when you turned into. But it all starts with that immense pressure, probably on yourself. And then end of the day with peace of, you want to down-regulate so you're able to sleep better.
Yeah.
The more sleep you have, the better recovery process you're going to have so you can handle that immense pressure in the morning.
100%.
So,
That was
I
beautiful.
like
That was beautiful.
Corey, is there any quotes or anything that you enjoyed from Huberman?
Man, I almost blacked out just being there. Just seeing him. Like, wow. It really did go quick. He was just spewing so much knowledge. Yeah, to talk about that, I hadn't thought about this point until now, actually. But starting with immense pressure and ending with immense peace, Outside of just the physical, starting your day hard, exercise, the cold plunge, yeah, and then end with kind of peace, calming effect. I feel like even in life, communication, relationships, there's an immense pressure regardless of what it is, a hard conversation, a breakup, whatever. But if you can, I don't know, communicate or get past that, then you'll find that immense peace. And I don't know, I just thought about that in terms of outside of health and fitness. We always put this pressure on ourselves and build up that stress when we have something hard to do or tasks that we have to get done that we're putting off. But then we do it and we don't feel that anymore. We feel that weight off our shoulders. We feel that immense peace. I don't know.
Do the hard things.
beautiful.
Do hard things often.
That's it.
Yep.
That's what Rogan always says. Pick something hard and do it. Stick to it. Do something hard. Everybody needs something tough to do. And to battle.
The most successful are the ones that know how to do hard things often.
Yes.
And they are like, of course it's not enjoyable. Do you think I want to do these things? He goes, no. But I'm willing to do them, and that's why I'm ahead of everyone else.
Living in your comfort zone, you have to get out of that.
Yeah, I still can't believe how well he touched on so many different topics and then blended them together in terms of transitions from one topic to the next.
He's got
incredible.
a million hyperlinks in his brain.
Yeah,
He just knows how to just
literally.
jump from one to the other like perfectly.
Yeah. He said, hey, I'm going to get to your question in a second, but I'm going to go to A, to C, to D, and then loop it back around to the initial question. I thought that was super interesting in a conversation point of view, you know, how he's able to do that. Me, I'd be like, what was your question again?
Yes.
You know, what did you say? What did you ask me?
There's a couple more that I'm gonna pull together because I think we can talk on all of it. But
Yes.
the first one, neuroplasticity is possible at any age if you're an active learner, and also learning is about anti-forgetting.
Yeah.
Now,
like
Doc,
that point, too.
I know this is something that you love studying and learning about, but what was something you took from either one or both of those?
I like that last point, anti-forgetting. So I think that comes down to whatever you learn, you want to try to remember, obviously not forget. So that goes back to the memory side of things. Now, when you look at memory, you want to then he touched on what's known as yoga nidra. So when you get into the first stages of sleep or any deep rest nap, you're able to upload the information, especially like through the amygdala, so you're able to recall it much easier, thus the forgetting aspect. So if you're gonna, and I know we've touched on this in many other times in other podcast episodes, but anytime you go into something you want to learn or remember, go through a hard bout, take some time of a nap afterwards, of down regulation, breathing, close your eyes, eliminate any stimuli you may have, then go back to either that same bout or go to different tasks roughly related to that subject.
Yep.
And you're able to recall it much easier. So I like the anti-forgetting. It's a different perspective, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And he talked about, again, some other ways to help with memory, recall, flashcards, repetitiveness. He also talked, he brought up, the best learners are the ones that know how to anti-forget the things that they're used to forgetting. He really brought up that there are things you can retain much easier than others. So focusing your time on the things you know you're going to forget harder, or you're having a tougher time remembering, those are the ones who win, because they don't sit and flip that 10,000th flashcard that they already know the answer to. He goes, they know that they remember it. They switch to what they've been forgetting, and they still just focus on that. Yep. And he goes, that's where you're going to retain that information. Yep. It makes a lot of sense.
I love
That's
that.
a great point. I love that.
Yes.
Was there anything, either one of those, Corey, that you took something from?
I think that really helps with school. I think going through my undergrad at ASU, I think it was very finding that repetitiveness and studying stuff that maybe I didn't need to study. Luckily, I got to where I'm at now, and I'm going to Parker, but taking that into Parker, I think that will really help. Yeah. Maybe not focus on what I already know as much, and learn new stuff and focus my time and energy on stuff that I'm not quite sure of or need to practice more of.
I love that.
What was that technology that you shared with me that I was pissed at? that I was like, I wish I knew this.
I'm sure there's new software out now, but the one that I have is called Anki, and it's an AI flashcard software. And what it does is it feeds you, so you make the flashcards online, and it has trackable, we'll call it trackable metrics that you can give the flashcards when it presents an answer to you. So you're presented the question, you then course, like any flashcard thing, you press the space bar or something and it flips and it gives you the answer. But then you have to tell it an honest answer. Did you get it right? Did you know the answer? Did you get it wrong? If you got it right, was it hard for you to remember? Did it take you a long time to remember it? Was it, you remembered it, but it took you maybe like a couple seconds, and then you just knew it right away. And how it does is it categorizes what it's going to do to you to help you retain that flashcard. So if you got it right like this, it'll probably push that flashcard out another week or so. It's, you know what, you already have it retained. We don't need to hit that neural circuit anymore. If it took you a few seconds, it's going to push it out maybe 30 minutes, and it's going to give it to you again. If it was really hard, it's going to give it to you in 5 minutes. Okay? If you got it wrong, it's going to give it to you in 30 seconds. And then it'll just keep building that neural circuit, because you, for some reason, you hit that flashcard and you didn't remember. That neural circuit hasn't even started yet. Flashcard in 30 seconds. Yeah. You got to start somewhere. But then as you continue to get better at it, it'll push it farther and farther out. And then just like Huberman said, the winners are the ones who just focus on what they're not remembering. And that's what it does for you. It just gives you continually the flashcards you keep getting wrong or having a tougher time with. That's where you're going to win.
Yeah.
And my retention it improved immensely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's.
dang you.
I'm sure that was in. I was in school. I was in school over 5
same.
years ago. So I would hope that there's different software out there, but that one alone, it was great. The last one I wanted to bring up, just because I love it, and I know Doc, you love it too, is physiological sighs are the fastest way to calm the nervous system.
Yes.
Basically, we've talked about this now, gosh, 5+ times at least on podcasts. But double inhale through the nose, long exhale through the mouth is one of the quickest ways to improve your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest state. It is he actually stated it was the fastest non-pharmacological way to reduce stress and anxiety. And
We see that.
if you hack your day every hour with a double inhale, exhale, you will be less stressed. You might have less anxiety, less stomach pain, who knows what. And he called it, these are ways to effectively manage your anxiety without drugs throughout the day. And he says you can do it. These things can hack your depression, your anxiety, your stress, if you do it often enough. And it's 10 seconds. It really is. 100%. But I do it all day. I love it. And I feel that healthy individuals who have a really positive vagal tone, they probably feel it quicker. Unhealthier individuals, it might take 20 physiological sighs to finally downregulate. But stay with it. Keep trying. You will eventually feel that.
Yeah, especially if you're running, you get a side ache. Do the double inhale, exhale, just a miscommunication. So that works really well there too. But
Nice.
Corey, have you heard of any stories in clinic or in your personal life that this has helped well? Because I know you've been exposed to this for a while, but.
Yeah, honestly, I did it subconsciously. To be honest, I really wasn't aware that it was hardwired into our brain. I can't remember exactly which part of the brain that it triggers, but we're actually hardwired to do those. Take big breaths throughout the day. You may find yourself sitting there. Dogs do it too. They'll go to their bed and they'll they do a big breath and a sigh. You may have noticed your dog doing that. We do it naturally as well.
To prepare for rest.
I've never realized that it was actually hardwired into us.
Imagine what 10 physiological sighs before bed might do to your sleep. Track that. See what that does for you.
Yes.
Yeah, more on Huberman. He's got millions of podcasts out there. I would highly recommend you check them out. Totally worth your time. Next, Doc's favorite here, Dr. Angela Duckworth. Doc, do you want to just talk a little bit about maybe some of the things you took from her, some highlights?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of it comes back to grit, and I like her story. And she started the presentation of her dad talking about greatness of any individual that, whether it's a scientist or like a triathlon star, more or less doing great things and recognizing that, and then talking about that consistently. And then Dr. Angela Duckworth, she honestly took that from there and then asked the question, okay, how do these individuals become great at what they do? And I think that's where the book Grit stems from.
Yeah.
I started reading a little bit last night, and there's a lot of awesome stuff. So look up the book Grit. I think it's like a national best-selling book.
I think it is too.
She is incredible in terms of how she talks on certain points, whether it's motivation, whether it's growth mindset. And there's a couple of different things I've learned, especially in terms of learning curves and intentional learning. I know we touched on that already, but yeah, or passion plus persistence equals grit, because you have to have that drive to go through tough times in order to come out with the results. So that's a fun little equation there.
But if you have passion, but you don't have discipline, you won't get to the end either.
100%.
So I love that she broke that down. And we'll call it, what's the word I'm thinking of actually? Not endless, but mindless passion, where you have this passion, but there's no direction. You're going to wander. You're not going to get to where you want. And then you might give up. And then you might be passionate the next day, but then you might give up. It's like you have to persevere. You have to maintain the discipline.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to get to where you want. And that's great too.
I love that.
Helps to really break down what you need to do to get what you want. I loved, and I know we just got done talking about this, but truly the most that I took away from her speech was the intentional effort of practice. And how true intention with practice is where you will become an expert. But if you half-ass that, you can lose so much time becoming that expert in what you're trying to achieve. She said to the likes of, you have a person over here who, we've all heard of, she called it the 10,000 hour rule, where you practice something for 10,000 hours, you're amazing at it. And she said, I disagree. She goes, intentionally practicing hard for 10,000 hours, yes, you will be an expert.
Yes.
But if you don't, that 10,000 hours now will be 30,000 hours. It'll take you that long to get where you should have been intentionally. That 20,000 hours scared the shit out of me.
Yep.
That changed everything I thought about with my intention of when I'm doing things, for sure. So the last one that she talked about was not quitting on a bad day. And I think we've all had our tough days. Maybe we've started something, we've been grinding for months, let's say even years. And let's say you hit that day where it's one of the worst days you've had. And it's coming to you and you're like, you know what, I am done with this. I don't think I can move on. I put what I can into this, but I think it's got me. I'm going to try something else. And she shared a story. I think it was her husband or her father. I think it was her husband.
Yes.
And she got to this point in time where she felt like she couldn't move on. And she goes, you know what, honey, I think I'm going to quit. And her husband looked at her and goes, you know what? I totally understand. You seem burnt out. You got nothing left in you. I get it. I can see it on you. Like, I want nothing but to support you. But he goes, I just would hate for you to quit on a bad day. And
Boom.
She took that in herself to say, you know what? Let's see what tomorrow brings. Let's see if I can't bring myself up into a little bit better mood. Give that, then think about it during when I'm in a different mood. Do I still think I got some left in me to continue? Most of the time, you do got what's left in you. Just don't let that bad day take what you've been building. But yeah, Doc, anything there, Corey?
Yeah, just don't let temporary emotions control your long-term outcomes, because you could be stuck in the moment and impulsively do something, not do something, and it could have long-term detriments. You don't want to quit on a bad day when you're in a bad mindset. Take the night, wake up hopefully in a better mood, get some sunlight, take a cold plunge, hit a little reset, and then move forward. So I actually took that down in my notebook as well during the event. I thought that was great. Don't quit on a bad day. Keep going. If you have multiple bad days in a row or multiple months of bad days in a row, then maybe consider. But if you have one temporary bout of a bad day or bad mindset, something happens to throw you off your course, get right back on the course, keep going.
I think that specific point changes how I talk to patients, specifically that are going through, whether it's tough times personally or they're feeling sore achiness throughout just due to the actual newer physical activity. And whenever they are feeling low or they feel like they might not be progressing how they like, going back to this point, you're not going to quit on a bad day. Keep with the program, keep with what you're doing. We might have to look at it from a different perspective to change a few small things up. As long as you're moving towards the outcome that you want or moving towards a purpose, I think you're going to win at the end of the day. Yeah, that was a really good point.
As long as the trajectory is continuing up, you may hit some lows, but
don't be quitting. Don't be quitting. At least not on a bad day.
Yes.
Alrighty. Next, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Let's go.
I think most men aged 15 to 35 now, he's been doing this long enough. He's got both ends of that spectrum. I'm sure others in their 40s and 50s too, but I think A large metric is that age group for men. Gary Vaynerchuk's been an inspiration to, I know, my life, your life. I know you watch him, Corey, and I think there's just no one else out there who truly just understands people and how to study them. It's crazy what he can predict, and the things he has predicted over and over again. The videos he was putting up at 20 years old, he's in his, I think, 40s now, talking about the things that are about to come, and everyone laughing at him when he's putting these videos out, and then they end up happening, and he's just ready to say, look at what happened. And I think not only that, but his grit and his tenacity and his mindset, and just, I'm sure things haven't been easy for him in certain times of his life, but his ability to be grateful and ground himself and just know that life is precious and we can still have bad days, but still find gratefulness and positivity in life. And I think that energy has been infectious with his followers and his audience. Gary Vaynerchuk, we were super excited to see him and also meet him.
Yes.
That was so incredible.
Chat with him for a
I
sec.
think
Cool.
I think we're definitely excited to announce that Gary has agreed to be on the Functional Code podcast. All rise for episode 155 is what he agreed to. 155.
I got two things, one of which, we're on episode 62. Would you be our 100th episode?
When would that be? How fast are you?
We're doing once a week with a short form, every single day coming out as well, too.
155 locked in.
Deal.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Deal.
We are very grateful for, even 10 minutes of his time.
Yes.
Just the fact that he was able to take Dr. Jace's questions, talk to us, and just give us insight and then agree. To be honest, it made the weekend. It really did. So we are super excited, and Gary Vee will always be in our hearts, and I'm just super excited. So
Yes.
this one takes different.
Yeah, and so just to walk through the whole situation. So leading up to it, got a chance to get a front row, and I know we've all seen a lot of Gary Vee's speeches, talks, social media posts. So he always takes questions at the end. So I'm thinking, okay, I got to be the first up to have at least a chance at a question. So we got closer up front. Honestly, when he was talking, I blacked out through that most of the whole time. I usually never
I would
am
have too.
starstruck.
I would have too.
In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what is the one question I'm going to ask, and then how the heck am I going to ask him to be on the podcast? It's going through my mind so many ways.
All the people there.
Yeah.
Front row.
I feel like it wasn't even all the people, it was just talking to him.
Just being
Like,
there, almost blacked out.
just like the idol status. So got a chance to go up. Super, super cool, but awesome individual. And I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to give as much value with that session that we have with him coming up. And it's probably going to be a ways out, but stay tuned.
Just grateful for the
Yeah.
opportunity, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Incredible human, and I just, again, honored to meet him.
Yes.
Honored to shake his hand.
Yes.
Alrighty. I could probably memorize everything he's ever said.
Honestly, yes.
So everything that I'm reading is probably something we've already heard, but
What is
he
the
did talk a
newer
little.
stuff?
Sorry, go ahead.
What is the newer stuff?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're-
That's what I'm going to hit on that, because he
Perfect.
did bring about some good information. One of them was the combination of AI and voice is going to be
Yeah.
profound. He talked about how you will walk into your house one day, you're going to shout out into the room, and you're going to ask it to do something for you, and it'll get it done for you. Whether that's, hey Siri, I'm hurting. Send me a massage therapist in 30 minutes. I'll be ready. Perfect. They're going to call for you. They're going to set it up. Massage will be there in 30 minutes, and you didn't have to do anything. And he goes, if you don't think that's going to jeopardize your industry, you are sorely mistaken.
Oh, yes.
And he goes, it's not just coming for the tech industry. It's coming for everyone.
Everything.
And he goes, if you aren't prepared, you are going to lose. And so AI was the foundation of the speech that he made. He also mentioned that AI is going to allow you to do bigger things, and it's going to help you scale, and it's going to help you improve your business. And he definitely tried to lower the fear and worry of it, because a lot of people feel that there's more negativeness to AI taking your job, and eventually we're all robots, are going to kill everybody and all that stuff. And he really tried to bring down that fear and say, look, this is here to help you, and you can truly make your life easier if you learn how to use this stuff. But it's going to take, like Dr. Duckworth says, thousands of hours to learn about it. But after you do that, you will be able to have a much easier life and truly improve your business. Yeah.
Love that. What's one thing you've took from?
One thing I really liked was when he talked about social media and trying to market yourself and advertising. I'll just read the quote. Social media is free. It's free. Yes, you can run ads, but when you post content, it can reach hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people for free. And then to touch on that too, on his recent podcast, or one of them, he talks about how followers don't really equate to views, vice versa. So don't worry about your follower count. You can have videos that blow up and have hundreds of thousands of views. Just start pushing content.
On your first post.
Yeah, your first post. They could just click the algorithm.
Yeah, your first post.
Yeah, some people just got lucky and one of their first posts just went viral.
Yeah, for people that don't have a lot of followers that want to be active on social media, me included, I want to start pushing my social media a little bit more and my personal brand, leveraging AI, different apps to help with that. I think we'll definitely we'll see that more in the future with clips and short form content and all that stuff. Yeah.
Doc, I gotta know. What's yours? I gotta know.
I think two things. I think there's one from Gary Vee, but I also want to bring in, I think this ties really well with that individual, Sarah, that we met.
Sarah. Oh, absolutely.
Because I think that would be a good pitch in for her and her company, because I think they go completely hand in hand together. But I think at the end of the day, I like your point, Corey. I think a lot of this comes back to branding at the end of the day, especially with more AIs. And you can almost make your own AI, and that can be part of the brand. But if you are your own brand long term, that can withstand a large portion of time. I think at the end of the day, it comes back to I want my grandchildren to see what steps I've taken and the growth I've given throughout years to come. I think that'd be super cool to pass down not only money but like knowledge and just where the family tree stemmed from in this era.
Yep.
I thought that would be. I think that's going to be fun to see how that kind of correlates down the road.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Do you want to speak on Sarah? I can't remember her last name, but we met an individual in the conference room. I think this is the next day after Gary Vee, and of course, like certain things get put into the universe for a reason. Obviously, we finished the night with us having Gary Vee on the podcast, episode 155 coming down the road, and then him talking about AI. The next day, we randomly meet an individual who makes these GPTs.
AI agents and
oh my God, it blew my mind.
It was incredible.
On what the capabilities and possibilities are.
And it's fun because when you hear someone like Gary Vaynerchuk explain that, and you're like, gosh, this is important. I know I really do feel what he said was important, and I want to figure out what he means, because he didn't have another hour to explain to you how to do it. He just said that you need to do it. Then you get into the fact that we got to meet Sarah and her husband, and that is their job now, is they use AI to build you models for success. And to listen to them, we're going to be hopefully getting on a podcast with them in the near future. But the fact was that you can now create your own AI helper using your voice and your scripts that you say and how you've recorded yourself. And it can then just make things that you would have done yourself the way that you would have done it. And I think the way that I can use it as an example, because you can use it in a lot of situations, but this is going to be maybe the most clear. We obviously are looking to scale this podcast. We're trying to figure out ways to work full-time jobs and also do this on the side. So she said that now you can get to this point where you feed AI the podcasts we've done, anything we have, audio and video,
voice memos outside of it.
It then analyzes and keeps and remembers everything. And then you ask it to do tasks for you that you could have done yourself, and it does it for you how you would have done it. It says and puts scripts out how you would have spoke it. And then at the end of it, if you ask it to turn it into your own voice, you can just do that anyway. And now we're going to get to the point where, Gary Vee said that. He said it. He goes, right now, we're getting to the point where I'm going to be putting podcasts out that I didn't even do. It's just my voice and AI and scripts. and it's not even. It's
scary.
That is unreal.
You don't even have to be here
You don't.
doing the podcast.
There it
You can
is.
Just spit it into AI and it shoots you out a podcast showing us.
And then it might get to a point where it'll simulate us in video, and it'll be fake versions of us on a video, talking, communicating, facial structure, body language.
Or an AR set in kind of conference room with others around the world.
Crazy.
I don't know. It's
But
Yeah.
when you think about it, hopefully from a non-scary way, you can realize what other things you can do with it. And for those, she had another example was like in sales where you're making 250, 300 calls a day, which that's a large part of your time. And you only get maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 opportunities to catch someone on that phone call and then try to make that sale. And she goes, your AI agent will make all 300 calls for you. Pick the ones that they answer and are vetted, and then just feed them to you, and all your day is just closing.
It's so nice.
And she goes, that's 90% now to 10. And the rest of your day, you can then do what you need to do. Imagine that for some people.
And they even said, or she said that her husband sent out how many emails?
I think 1
in one
billion in 1 year. It's a lot.
A B.
Yeah.
I don't think I was there for that.
And his open rate is
might have been when you guys.
his open rate is like 50%. So he's gotten to the point where
Email.
500 million people read his emails every year.
Could you imagine getting texts?
Scaling that
at
with AI
rate?
is incredible. But
Yeah.
I'm super excited to chat with those two and look forward to them being on the podcast.
So yeah, I'd say if you guys want to know more information, Gary Vaynerchuk, there's a lot of information
Yep.
out there. I know we
Yep.
can dive into some of his stuff, but I think there's others that I think we got a couple other different insights on that I think we should probably get to as well. But
Yeah.
no, that's awesome.
Alrighty. My boy, one of my favorites of all time, one of the first real performance masters. He was, I think in 2012, the personal trainer of the year.
Oh, really?
He's
Wow.
got a master's in exercise science. He's similar to Galpin, just no bullshit, only wants to find the best, just so invested he takes hours and hours to study things and he just wants it to be the best. Ben Greenfield, truly a savant in biohacking.
Yeah.
One of the first to get it started.
So smart.
And just how he has hacked himself and have won Me versus Me. He really is one of the first that ever started that too.
Wow.
Tracking everything he can on himself, like he's the one that really, his individuality of measurement, some things you can learn so much from him from doing that. But yes, I wasn't able to attend this seminar, but I have seen Ben speak live before. But for you two, what were some things that you took away? Any quotes, any topics that you want to talk on?
Man, it honestly was one of my favorite lectures of the weekend. A lot of it I knew or at least had a good baseline of in terms of what we should be trying to optimize in our life. We want to be prioritizing exercise, nutrition, our fitness, but then also blocking out EMFs and different stuff like that. He took a deep dive into some of the longevity tips like sarcopenia. I don't know if he actually said the word, but he inferred that with muscle loss and why we need to prioritize strength, power, VO2 max as we age. I think he even touched on lactate. I'm not too sure. But just some other, like a deep dive into stuff that I'm personally interested in. And he made it very easy for the crowd to understand what he was saying. And that's what I really liked. It was easy to retain. I didn't have to, what was he saying? Just very clear, concise on a variety of different topics. And I thought it was one of my favorites. I don't know about you, Doc, but we got to attend that together, and man, I was engaged the whole time. I took a lot of notes on his.
Yeah, it was good. I like the part that he brought up, your body is a battery. And when you look at like just different like electromagnetic fields and how well you have to protect your whole body, your energy, your nervous system. I know he and then we'll probably get into this, he built a house, which I don't know how much it cost, but he pretty much put all the biohacking he possibly could into a house, which is incredible.
Anti-EMF systems.
Yeah.
He has anti-EMF blocking around all of the electricity. So around the cables, he put blockers so it doesn't emit out. Yeah. He actually has studied and found that certain textiles, sofas, flooring, all emit either certain microplastics and or EMFs.
Yep.
And so then he talks about lowering that quality, or lowering that for higher quality, we'll call it materials. Everything in his house is leather, I believe, from animals.
Even his Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of that. I've seen a few people do this, Saladino included. You take the Ethernet cable, plug it directly into the Ethernet to phone jack or laptop, and you can keep your phone on airplane mode, but still be able to use Wi-Fi directly through an Ethernet cable, so you're not emitting any EMFs or anything like that. So I thought that was super cool too.
The biggest thing
had no idea on that.
he touted, he always tells us, and I keep forgetting, but he goes, "You're a frickin' maniac if you sleep next to your phone and it's not in airplane mode."
Yeah.
He is scared. He goes, "I don't know why you'd ever do it." He goes, "Get that thing away from your head, get that thing away from your balls." He goes, "Put it on EMF or airplane mode." He goes, "I'm telling you, you don't want that."
Wow.
Yeah.
Scariness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so those are some of the big things that I learned, and there's a bunch of small things. He touched on so many topics.
I like the little segment about alcohol. It was funny, not saying, yeah, alcohol is great, go drink it. But he touched on if you were to drink, there are some studies and that it could have benefits. Specific red wines and certain tequilas could have potential benefits in small doses here and there. Obviously, moderation in certain doses, examples of like red wine.
But if you do like to enjoy that, how can you best hack it for yourself long term, and what might that look like? Because we've been able to experience that everyone has something that they want. No one's perfect, and it is incredibly exhausting to try to be perfect. Guys like Ben who can say, "Look, this is just something that you can do to not feel so dang bad about wanting to have some relaxation and just enjoy it." But then again, it's a little bit more optimized for your health. Obviously, alcohol is what it is, but it's at least a little bit better than the latter.
100%.
If you want to indulge here and there
Here's the best way.
in a calm state with your family, have a glass of wine at the dinner table or something like that, it's cool, assuming you're not slamming alcohol every day. Then it becomes a detriment. But that was just a small piece I thought was funny since we were in Vegas and he got the crowd going with that, so that was cool. But
Yeah, and I'll leave the links below to that Parker's seminar that he gave us as well, just so you guys at home will have access to that. And I know Corey opened up that link and gave different like products that he uses, different types of insight and information on all the topics he talked about. Pay attention to that; they'll be in the links below.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then a good segue into more of the muscle health we've been talking about was
yes.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. And again, if you guys don't know who she is, a DO who has really grew her following over the last few years on a lot of different things she's such an expert on. But one of the main ones she likes to talk about is just strength and being strong in general. Why that should be is her argument that the muscle in our bodies is an organ system.
Yes.
You need to start. You need to start. Yes. You need to start treating it as if it's visceral and important to you. It's not just this thing that moves you. There's so much
metabolic
more
engine.
to it. Yep. I like that metabolic engine. I love that. And how muscle is earned.
Yes.
But once it's earned, you will have so much thrivant into the end of your time as a human if you just take the time to earn it.
Yes.
And the way that she communicates about muscle is just so cool. It's so cool to hear her perspective on how much she appreciates muscle as a part of the body.
And I remember we talked about this at the beginning of the pod, this episode, but the difference between obesity and not having as much muscle, instead of shifting, I gotta lose all this weight, just if you focus on building the muscle up, subsequently obesity will improve long term. So
she even argues that
incredible
we're not in
perspective.
a obesity epidemic, we are in a lack of muscle epidemic.
Yes.
We are sarcopenic.
Yep.
We need way more muscle as humans. And she goes, it's obviously, she goes, we've been focusing on fat for the last 70 years. She goes, how has that been doing for us?
Exactly.
She goes, let's focus on building muscle. And I would only argue that fat problem is going to get much better once we focus on muscle. And I agree with her.
Especially from kids too.
Yeah.
To adults.
And it's getting worse in kids. She said that. Kids are more obese, have less muscle than they used to, like 35% less, I think, than prior years. Scary.
it is pretty scary. And I know recently she argued, or at least I think it was on Huberman, that sarcopenia is not just, if you look at the definition of muscle loss over time, that in itself could apply to kids.
It is applying to kids.
More often than not, most people think of it as as you age or as you get older, or then you need to start working on it. But now we're seeing that these kids, also are having muscle loss and deterioration, increase in fat. So it is scary. So now that definition is starting to shift a little bit more.
It opens it up. Wow. Yeah.
And
Scariness.
she even spoke on, I believe, the DeLauer study that he shared too with the upper limit. We talk about how we used to think it was 30 to 40. Now we know it's upper limits of even 100 at some studies. And she goes, you'll never have to worry about that. She goes, if anything, you need to be getting minimum, I think she said like a 1-to-1. 1-to-1 ratio was her ratio.
I think so.
Upwards of 1.6 even. She's
Yep. That's what she's saying.
in pounds, not kilos.
Pounds, not
yeah.
kilos. Definitely not kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the
So, for example, what that means is if you're 150 pounds, you should be eating roughly 150 grams of protein per day. 1.6 would be about that 200 maybe. Yeah.
And didn't she say something about, that you can't necessarily get a lot of the amino acids which are found within the protein that you're trying to consume anyways. A majority has to come from diet supplementation. And then there's a turnover rate, which is why you need it on a daily basis at that rate too.
I like the word she used, which was essential. We talked about
Yes.
that. And how when we think about our macros and we think about our essential nutrients we need to take, we're thinking like vitamins and other things that we think more essential. But when she rerouted the idea that protein is actually what you need to be worried most about as far as an essential intake, that changes everything, because she talked about all the amino acids that are essential and why protein is essential. And I think most people, let me rephrase that. There are individuals who don't like eating meat. It doesn't mean that they're vegetarian or vegan. Some just don't eat a lot of it. They would much prefer to get their calories from pastas and salads, and maybe just they don't like to eat a lot of meat. But what she argued is it's not negotiable. You need to figure out a way to intake that protein. And yes, an easy way to do it is eating a lot of meat. Now, if you want to try to get there without it, she still wants you to do that. But she also then argued animal-based versus plant-based. She had some things to say about that too, but now that's a different conversation. But I think we can still argue, no matter how you get it, you need to be getting it.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to speak on the anabolic window isn't a panic button?
Yeah, we were talking about that on the way back from the DeLauer talk.
Because, you guys have a
So,
lot of insight on that.
I asked you, Corey, because I asked you, I said, did he speak about when we should be taking protein? And he had said something about that. And then you want to go into the carb talk of what he talked about too with that? So should we be worried about protein intake during this window that we've known about? Because I remember you talked about the resistance exercise and how it can be pushed out to so long and not needing to worry about that window.
Yeah, most people think 30 minutes you have to have your protein. Now, for carbs, it may be a little bit of a different story, but right here, the Journal of Applied Physiology found, muscle protein synthesis increases rapidly post-exercise, right?
Yes.
When we're in the gym, we're destroying the muscles, we're breaking them down, muscle tissue, so we gotta obviously build that back up so the body starts to produce that. That has increased 50% 4 hours post-exercise. 24 hours post-exercise, muscle protein synthesis increases to 109%.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty crazy.
What it means is we're still building at that time.
anabolic
Yes.
mode.
There's no window an hour after a workout. We have plenty of time.
In fact, 36 hours to roughly around, I think it was within 14% of baseline, which, kind of means that the anabolic window is a little bit larger, a lot bit larger than we typically thought. 30 minutes to an hour, you got to get your protein. Actually, I have a day, because at a day, it's a little over 100% increase. So that is super cool. Kind of contradicts what most people think in this space. But as long as your daily 24-hour protein needs are met, then you should be good. You don't really have to focus on, again, going back to if you're fasting or something, you can eat 100 grams just like that. So regardless of when it is, after you work out, as long as you're, there shouldn't be that fear there. As long as you're getting your daily protein intake, should be good, which should be like at least 1-to-1 ratio, if not more.
So do you also want to talk on resistance exercise and carbohydrate utilization?
Yeah.
Because when he brought that up, I was...
Man, so this was super cool right here. So let's say your muscle has at least 25% glycogen. So I don't know, maybe you did some exercise in the morning or something, you're moving around a lot, moving stuff. You have about 25% of your glycogen. That really won't affect your performance too much, which I thought was pretty interesting, because usually I try to eat carbs before I work out, like most people, and then go work out and all that stuff. But greater than 25% does not affect performance. So if you have more than 25% glycogen in your muscles, it doesn't really affect performance that much compared to just 25%. So that was super cool. And then intra-workout, so during your workout, yeah, if you take carbs or ingest carbohydrates while you're working out, you're not gonna get that insulin spike. In fact, I didn't tell you guys this, intra-workout or during, plus immediately after exercise up to 2 hours. Carbohydrate intake does not require insulin to pull glucose into the muscle.
So not just during, but after.
Not just during, but up to 2 hours. I didn't know that either until I was going through my notes last night.
So just so everyone
That's
knows,
cool.
what Corey's saying is when we ingest carbohydrates, and in that 2-hour window, it sounds like, during resistance training, we don't need insulin to utilize carbohydrates. And that's effective because insulin, we always want to try to not use insulin. The more we have to use insulin, they've shown, is what decreases longevity. So when we can hack our insulin receptors, that's going to push us out. So the fact is that we will ingest and use that carbohydrate in that 2-hour window without the need of insulin. That's phenomenal.
It's pretty crazy. And in fact, there was a question that I think Thomas DeLauer got about this where, assuming, let's say you're on a keto diet or carnivore, where you're really not getting a lot of carbs naturally, or in your diet at least, if you want to introduce carbs, to be able to flip that switch from fat to carbs, to be able to have the metabolic flexibility, if you will, you can take carbs, I don't know, in a solution or a drink or maybe a little snack or something during your workout, and you won't get that insulin spike that you're trying to avoid if you're trying to stay in ketosis. Now, you're going to temporarily be knocked out of ketosis, just given the fact that there's going to be carbs flowing through you, but mostly due to the movement itself of exercise, plus metabolic activation of what is AMPK, signaling those GLUT4 receptors to then start pulling in glucose to the muscles. Super cool stuff.
Basically, a very effective way to when you should consume your carbs. It'd be a great way to add that into your daily schedule when you are doing resistance training.
Yeah, and according to the Journal of Nutrients, 49 studies they looked at, pre-workout carbs are not essential for strength, performance, or muscle growth. Yeah, so that kind of goes against what I always thought. I always try to eat carbs before I go work out.
So did that, honestly, carb loading then, is that just prior to 24 to 48 hours prior to, maybe that's not quite the study, but just prior to, it definitely doesn't make it.
Yep, let's say I have a bowl of oatmeal 30 minutes, an hour before I go work out, whatever it is. Yeah, I didn't do a deep dive into that one, but it looks like an analysis where they looked at 49 total studies. Yeah, pre-workout carbs basically didn't equate to increased strength performance or muscle growth.
You don't need to hit that bowl of spaghetti before leg day.
I would argue that because if, let's say, you have a big event the next day or a lifting meet or something, you do want to maximize your glycogen stores to have as much energy as possible. Long-term, 24-hour maybe carb loading would be good if you have you're gonna exert a lot of energy using carbs, race or something. Yeah, then you would want to eat a lot of carbs. But if you're going to the gym every day and you're like me, trying to eat carbs before then, according to the study, you don't necessarily have to have that for strength performance or muscle growth, assuming you have at least 25% glycogen stores that Thomas DeLauer was talking about, or else performance will be affected. So that was pretty crazy.
I feel like we're starting to get very dialed in and specific more with performance medicine as more of these studies have come out. We're starting to learn a lot more of the myths. A lot of what we thought about now are myths. And they're changing like that very quickly every day.
Coding.
And bodybuilders now versus bodybuilders back then, probably completely different understanding of their nutrition and health compared to now. It's crazy. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have on her. We obviously spoke a little bit about Thomas DeLauer too.
So what we'll do is we'll put up a couple videos here of us asking the question, what is one functional code you live by? And then we'll go into one of ours each, and we'll end the day on that side.
Yeah, so we had the luxury of asking, I think, a few individuals over the weekend. We have 2 on video.
The question is, what is one functional code do you live by?
That doing the right thing isn't always the right thing.
I'll speak on Gary's, and he knew it right away. He didn't even drop on me. When Dr. Jace asked him, he goes, doing the right thing all the time is the right thing. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. So you're always going to, you should just always try to just do the right thing no matter what. And I think this can be tied into so many different conversations, but really I think doing the right thing often and always will always karma and energetically bring you advancement in life. And it was so cool to hear from his voice, everything he's preached about, and just shows you what kind of a guy that guy is.
Yeah, I like
Awesome.
black
Very
out.
genuine. Yeah, I know. He's very genuine. He's always the same. He's Gary. He's genuine. He's real all the time.
Does
He's
never
not
change.
fake. No.
So what did Dan say now? I wasn't there when you guys asked.
You find interesting, or one thing that you kind of live by to help for your health journey?
One thing that I live by for a health journey.
Yes.
Okay. I think one thing that I would live by for a health journey is that there's a lot of people who have a lot of success on many different diets. You will find people who are successful on paleo. You will find people who are successful vegans. You'll find people who are successful fasting and Mediterranean. There's success stories within all of those, but there is no success stories in people who only eat through a window, only have drive-through, only have packaged goods, only have stuff with cartoon characters on the box. If you just simply eat real food, that's honestly 80% of your way there. Eating real food, something that doesn't have to prove to you that it's healthy, something that hasn't been on a shelf for many years in a row, that is where you're gonna find the most success stories possible, and it's because within every one of those diets, they emphasize eating real food. So when you combine real food with the dietary approach that you have the most belief and buy-in and adherence to, that is a good functional code to follow.
I love that. Do you pay attention to like organic versus non-organic as much?
Not as much. No, for some things it can matter. Coffee is something that actually is wise to have organic because it's one of the most sprayed things in the entire nutrition world. Strawberries also being the same. So sometimes it does matter, other times it doesn't. The Environmental Protection Agency, they actually put something out every year called the Dirty Dozen, and that is the 12 most sprayed foods. So if that is something that you're interested in, then you can do that. But for the most part, if you still just focus on whole foods, you're going to be doing a great job.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, he worded it in a way that I thought was super funny. He was like, people have success on carnivore, on keto, on vegan, on Mediterranean, whatever it is, but you don't see healthy people eating from a window. So I thought that was funny. Meaning fast food.
There's one successful McDonald's diet, right?
No, you can't. No. You may lose some weight, gain some weight, whatever your goals are, but metabolically, you're going to be very unhealthy, and in terms of longevity, that's not good for you. Stick to whole foods, regardless of one ingredient foods. Like, I always recommend paleo to anybody. You know, just real foods, eat real foods, one ingredient. That's it. Nope, nothing processed. But
All right, boys.
cool.
So
Do we have our functional codes? I didn't even think about one for us. You have one?
I think so.
All right. If you're ready, go.
So one
I got a lot of them. That's why. I don't know which one I want to choose.
That's the thing.
Gotta decide.
One functional code I live by is doing your best in any situation, every single day, while trying to better yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally, and then supporting having people around you that will build you up, that are optimistic, and that will support you through tough times.
I love that.
That was great.
That was awesome.
Yeah, very similar. Your life is really up to you. I think your life is based on the choices that you make, regardless if they're good or bad. So trying to make the best choices that you possibly can every single day. Work towards what you want. Build that grit, that resilience, everything that they talked about this weekend. One day at a time. You may have a bad day here and there, but you can rebound, bounce back, and set a goal. Move towards it each and every day as genuine as possible, and have a community to support you, and respect your mom and dad, your siblings. That's it. Love your family. Tell them you love them.
I know you shared a little bit about those values. We learned from martial arts. 100%. Dude, I'm telling you, when you spoke about those, that was one of my. I look back at that video sometimes when you talk about the morals and values of martial arts. Yeah, I want my kids to be in the martial arts after I heard that from you.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
You want to remind them a little bit about just the morals and values you
Yeah,
learned?
we touched on the last podcast.
That worked.
Yeah, going back to the last podcast, martial arts teaches you more than just technique on the mat. It shows you how to, I was doing it at a young age, so how to be on time, how to respect the people that are above you in rank, just respecting everybody. Win, lose, draw, you're gonna shake hands with your opponent. Just discipline, being there every day, working towards a goal, competing, losing. I think that's a big thing. How to lose as genuinely as you can. Oppositely, winning as genuinely and as humbly as you possibly can. And I think that's martial arts really makes you humble. And I think growing up at a young age doing martial arts really showed me all those morals and values that you can really put towards into life.
And I would speak for you, but you can have a chance to speak yourself to say that martial arts gave you a foundation to where you are today. I would think that's true.
Yeah.
It gave me some sort of independence as well. It's an individual sport as much as it is a team sport. Although it's you and your opponent, it takes hours of people behind you, coaches, teammates. Gotta have good teammates behind you, partner in life, if you will. Whatever it may be. My parents, shout out to them, because taking me to practice and train every day and drive into different locations to go compete, and always having a support system is motivating. And I don't know, you learn a lot doing martial arts, and it really, helps with life.
Alrighty, I'll end with mine. I'm going to end with the chant that I say every day. That is my functional code. I say it every single day when I wake up. I say, I am the best at what I do, but I do not know everything. Helps keep you humble, helps keep you prepared to learn. Because the next thing I say is, I am a learner. Last day I end with, I believe a miracle will happen today. And it helps me find those small things to appreciate in life. Sometimes they're big miracles that come my day, sometimes they're small. But what Gary says, I do fully hold into my heart, me waking up that day was the miracle. It surely was. We are 4 trillion, 100 trillion to 1 chances of being on this earth. Even if I don't feel like a miracle happened that day, I look back and say I was breathing. That's the damn miracle.
Love that.
That is my functional code.
Good stuff. Amen. That's a good one to end on. Yeah. Shoot.
All right, boys, it's been an honor. Thank you guys so much. This was a crazy weekend. I can't wait to do this, guys, again. This was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Shout out to Parker. Shout out to everybody who was at Parker speaking. We thank you so much. We hope this was valuable. If you were at Parker and you're watching this, let us know how things were. Comment, just share with us, share some value. And until next time, guys, we'll talk to you.
Disclaimer, the content provided in this health podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is solely at your own risk. The creators and hosts of this podcast are not responsible for any actions or decisions you may take based on the information presented.
Thanks for joining us on The Functional Code. For more evidence-based health insights, subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the Functional Code. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and embrace the science of living well.